Justin Bieber posted a tribute on Instagram, and fans and other celebrities are calling him out. Before I get into the story, I just want to put out a disclaimer. Please do not send any hate to Justin Bieber, Chris Brown, Rihanna, or anyone else involved in this story. This video is simply meant to report on the news and give insight on the situation. On May 3rd, Justin Bieber posted this photo on Instagram. It's a tribute that says, MJ plus Tupac equals Chris Brown. In the caption, Justin wrote, "Everyone wants to wait till people pass to give them the credit they deserve. I'm calling it now. When Chris Brown passes away after a long, full life, you will miss what you had in front of you the whole time. Trust me, watch. You will see. The people who have overlooked this man's talent. You need to reevaluate. Love you, Chris Brown." Chris Brown replied, "I love you, man. Thank you for believing in me. Your star shines so bright and your heart is unmatched. You are a king, but more importantly, you were put here to inspire and create endless possibilities, bro. I'm with you till the wheels fall off, and when they do, we go get some new wheels." Some celebrities supported Justin and Chris. Singer Sean Kingston wrote, "Big facts, lil bro. Chris Brown legendary." Nick Cannon commented, "I made this a while ago for my lil bro." Comedian Marlon Wayans said, "Celebrate the legends while they still breathing. Let's get back to love." Even influencers commented on the post. Danielle Cohn said, "Agree on this." Hayden Summerall wrote, "So true. Chris Brown legend." Malu Trevejo commented, "Fire. Yes." But a lot of people didn't like the post. Several people called out the influencers who supported Chris. "Danielle, shut up. You're a child. Go read on these subjects more and let's see if you agree then." "Hayden, I used to believe in you." Cancelled. "Malu, what the f***? Are you really a woman?" Other celebrities and influencers weren't happy with the post. Beauty guru Chloe Morello wrote, "No." Influencer Fiorella Zalea commented, "Math is cool and all, but the formula most people care about is good person over good musician." YouTuber Paola Locatelli said, "Abusing women is not a mistake." And fans started speaking out against Chris and Justin. Read the police report, look at pictures of her face after that incident, and tell me what about it looks like a mistake. So, abuse is okay, but you draw the line at bullying? Really? Yikes, dude. Y'all need your heads checked. In order to understand why so many people don't like Chris Brown, we need to go back in time. Chris and Rihanna started their relationship after they met at the 2005 Vibe Awards. Between 2005 and 2008, the two insisted they were just friends, despite being seen at events and in public. Then, on February 8, 2009, at roughly 12:30 a.m., Chris and Rihanna got into a fight that escalated to physical violence. Rihanna had visible facial injuries after the incident. Chris turned himself in to the LAPD at 6:30 that evening. To get a better picture of what happened that night, I'm going to share some sections from the police report. Around 12:25 a.m. on February 8th, Chris and Rihanna were driving down a road in LA when Rihanna picked up Chris's phone and saw a 3-page text message from a woman Chris had a previous sexual relationship with. They got into a verbal fight, and Chris pulled the car over and tried to force Rihanna out of the car. However, Rihanna was wearing a seatbelt. When he couldn't force her out, Chris shoved her head into the passenger window, leaving her with a bruise. Rihanna turned to look at Chris, and he punched her in the left eye. He then continued to hit her in the face while he drove. Rihanna's mouth started to fill with blood, and blood splattered on her clothing and the inside of the car. Chris looked at Rihanna and said, "I'm going to beat the shit out of you when we get home. You wait and see." Rihanna tried to call her assistant, but when the assistant didn't answer, she pretended to be on the phone with her. She said, "I'm on my way home. Make sure the cops are there when I get there." After Rihanna hung up, Chris said, "You just did the stupidest thing ever. Now I'm really going to you." Chris continued hitting Rihanna, and Rihanna covered her face and bent over to protect herself. Chris punched her left arm, leaving her with a bruise on her arm and multiple bruises on her left hand. When Rihanna tried to send a text message to her other assistant, Chris threw her phone out the window. Chris continued to drive, and Rihanna saw his phone in his lap. She grabbed the phone and tried to make a call, but before she could do anything, Chris put her in a headlock and punched her as he drove. At one point, he even bit her ear. When Chris stopped the vehicle, Rihanna turned off the car, removed the key from the ignition, and sat on the keys. Chris couldn't find the keys and punched her in the face and arms. Chris then put Rihanna in a headlock and applied pressure to her carotid arteries. She wasn't able to breathe, and she began to lose consciousness. When Rihanna tried to gouge his eyes, he bit her fingers and released her. Chris continued to punch Rihanna, but she started pushing him away with her feet. He punched her legs and feet, and Rihanna screamed for help. Once she started screaming, Chris got out of the car and walked away. On March 5th, Chris Brown was charged with felony assault and making criminal threats. He pleaded not guilty to both charges. And on June 22nd, Chris accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to a felony and was sentenced to 5 years probation and 6 years community labor. The probation report outlined 2 other instances of domestic violence. The first incident happened 3 months before the February attack. Rihanna slapped Chris during an argument and he shoved her into a wall. In the second incident, Chris broke the front and passenger side windows in a car they were driving when visiting Barbados, Rihanna's home country. In 2012, Rihanna told Oprah she forgave Chris and still loved him. "I have to forgive him, because I cared about him still. The minute I let go of that, I started living again." In 2018, the Rihanna assault incident came back to public attention through a Snapchat ad that seemed to promote abuse. The third-party ad showed a would you rather poll with these 2 options: slap Rihanna or punch Chris Brown. Rihanna responded on her Instagram story. "Now Snapchat, I know you already know you ain't my fave app out there, but I'm just trying to figure out what the point was with this mess. I'd love to call it ignorance, but I know you ain't that dumb. You spent money to animate something that would intentionally bring shame to domestic violence victims and make a joke of it. This isn't about my personal feelings, cause I don't have much of them, but all the women, children, and men that have been victims of domestic violence in the past, and especially the ones who haven't made it out yet. You let us down. Shame on you. Throw the whole apology away." People were not impressed with the ad. I don't even get it. Like, how is it fun or entertaining in any way? I love how it's titled Impossible Choices, as if I had to think twice about punching Chris Brown square in the face. And you'd be just like him. Keeping your hands to yourself would be better. And Snapchat stock even went down in response to the ad. But the Rihanna incidents weren't isolated. In March 2011, 2 years after the assault against Rihanna, Chris had a violent outburst after being interviewed on Good Morning America. When host Robin Roberts asked about the Rihanna incident, he tried to shake off the questions.
That was very serious, what you went through and what happened. Even the judge, though, afterwards said that you had served your time as far as the community service and that, and moving on. Have you been able to, how have you been able to
I've been focusing on his album, you know? I think this album is what I want people to hear and want people to really get into. So definitely this album is what I want them to talk about and not the stuff that happened 2 years ago.
But after the interview, he allegedly started screaming and shattered a glass window with a chair. In February 2012, he stole a fan's iPhone after she took a picture of him in a car outside a Miami club. According to the police report, Chris grabbed the phone from her hands, told her, "You ain't going to put that on no website," and drove off with the phone. He was charged with 1 count of robbery by sudden snatching. In June 2013, Chris was accused of injuring a woman inside an Orange County nightclub. The woman, Deanna Gines, told TMZ that Chris deliberately shoved her to the ground right before the bar closed. She said doctors told her she had torn ligaments in her right knee. In a now deleted tweet, Chris said, at TMZ, "Please stop with the false stories. I don't usually comment, but I didn't do anything." In July 2015, Chris was named in an assault investigation when a woman claimed he forcibly threw her off a tour bus for not giving up her cell phone. The woman also said her phone was broken and filed a report for third-degree assault. In January 2016, a woman accused Chris of punching her in the eye and stealing her phone after she tried to take a picture with him at a private party in Las Vegas. The Clark County District Attorney's Office said they wouldn't pursue charges due to insufficient evidence. After the accusations came out, Chris posted and deleted an Instagram video where he said the woman was probably too ugly to party with him. In June 2016, Chris's tour manager said Chris screamed at her on a tour bus over her employment terms, causing her to leave the bus and abruptly quit the tour. Afterwards, the tour manager emailed Chris's entire team and explained the situation, saying she felt unsafe because he was irrational and high on drugs. On August 30th, 2016, a woman called 911, claiming Chris had threatened her with a gun when he asked her to leave his home. The police responded and took a report. When officers tried to enter his home, Chris refused them entry until they had a search warrant. While the officers were waiting for a judge to sign the warrant, Chris stayed inside and posted several Instagram videos. He claimed the police only care about accusations against him, not accusations he has against others.
When I call the police for stalker people that are endangering my life, they don't come to the next day. Let somebody make a up allegation about me, and oh yeah, the whole SWAT team.
In a later IG video, he said he wasn't coming out of his home because he didn't do anything wrong.
I'm not coming out for what? I ain't did, I ain't gonna do, and it's always gonna be the police. Black Lives Matter.
Once the police obtained their search warrant, Chris was arrested without incident and released from jail on $250,000 bail. And on January 22, 2019, Chris was arrested after he was accused of non-consensual sex in Paris. He was later released without any charges and later filed a defamation lawsuit against his accuser. So, what's the big issue? The facts of domestic violence and celebrity worship in the age of cancel culture. Multiple people commented on Justin's Instagram post saying domestic violence isn't a mistake, and they're right. According to DoSomething.org, domestic/dating violence is a pattern of controlling behaviors that one partner uses to get power over the other, including physical violence or threat of physical violence to get control, emotional or mental abuse, and sexual abuse. Here are some sobering statistics about the reality of domestic violence. 1/4 of women worldwide will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. Women between the ages of 20 to 24 are at greatest risk of becoming victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and sexual assaults combined. Boys who witness domestic violence are 2 times as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults. And domestic violence has an economic impact too. Victims of domestic violence lose a total of 8 million days of paid work each year. The costs of domestic violence amount to more than $37 billion a year in law enforcement involvement, legal work, medical and mental health treatment, and lost productivity at companies. Between 21 and 60% of victims of domestic violence lose their jobs due to reasons stemming from the abuse. So it's easy to see why domestic violence shouldn't be written off or glorified, no matter who the person is. But that brings us to an uncomfortable question. What do we do when the alleged perpetrator is a Hollywood icon or music legend? In a Reddit thread discussing why Chris Brown hadn't been canceled yet, a former fan said this: "I understand why the Black community continually supports him. People are quick to tear down people of color for what they actually did, R. Kelly, or didn't do, Usher, or for even standing up for themselves, Kanye. It reminds me of O.J. Simpson, where people gave him benefit of the doubt, but those who doubted him were clearly right. He didn't deserve a second or third or fourth, etc. chance. I don't know why people still stand by him. He isn't cute anymore. His music hasn't been good in years. I think because Rihanna publicly forgave him, that gave people some sort of justification. I say all of this as someone who is obsessed with his first 2 albums. But once it became clear that it was continuously problematic, I turned in my stand card and haven't actively listened to him since. It's easier to deal with an alleged perpetrator who is still living and still being accused of crimes. No longer listening to their music or attending their shows will have more of a financial impact. Plus, you can follow their growth as a person to see if they do change their behavior. But what about when someone isn't alive to answer for their crimes? When someone is completely ingrained in pop culture and instrumental to the development of their industry, it isn't easy to outright cancel them. Let's talk about Michael Jackson for a minute. Since 1993, he's been accused of molestation and abuse, including a very public trial in 2005, where he was acquitted of all charges, and the allegations involved young kids. But in 2019, the accusations came back into the public eye when the documentary Leaving Neverland took a deeper look at the accusations from 2 of the alleged victims. Michael objectively revolutionized the music world with songs like Thriller, Billie Jean, and I Want You Back. And artists like Drake and Bruno Mars count Michael Jackson as a major influence in their careers and music. It's tempting to want to delete his existence from our culture, but as Slate writer Carl Wilson says, pretending to throw that foundational performer and songwriter's work as a whole into the landfill would be an empty rhetorical flourish. If American music matters to you, it's not a genuine option. But that doesn't mean we have to treat the man himself as a saint. Max C., a culture writer for GQ, writes, "Jackson's music cannot mean the same thing from here on. Regardless of whether you believe James Safechuck's and Wade Robson's allegations or not, and I do, Leaving Neverland has added an asterisk to Jackson's name in the cultural discourse. It's now hard to imagine an artist talking about his influence without acknowledging his alleged crimes. You can't change history, but you can respond to it. As Jackson's image becomes toxic, it's conceivable that an era of music will be made in opposition to him rather than in his image. The past is what it is. All that's left to do is move forward." This story brings up a lot of hard issues and tough questions to answer. No matter what someone has allegedly done or what public opinion is, it's up to the individual person to make their own judgment call. That being said, there's a way you can recognize someone's contribution to their industry and still condemn their personal actions. When John Oliver did a story for Last Week Tonight about the Confederacy, he talked about Jimmy Savile, one of his childhood heroes. Savile was a beloved British children's entertainer. He had several shows on the BBC and raised millions of British pounds for charity. There were even statues erected in his honor. But after he died in 2011, hundreds of victims came forward with abuse allegations. Once the allegations came to light, all the public memorials for Savile were taken down.
The point is, Savile's headstone was taken down, as was that sign and that creepy statue, because once we found out that he was a monster, we accepted it was no longer appropriate to publicly glorify him.
We can't erase the past. We can't change how we glorified celebrities before we knew what they did behind closed doors. But we can change how we look at them going forward and the impact they have in the future. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments down below.